Hi, I'm Pat. Welcome back. Today, I want to tell you about my experience making this quilt top, the Jen Kingwell Golden Days quilt. I made this as part of a Block of the Month program that started in 2018, and I finished it in 2020. Next, it's going to head to the long arm and get thread basted so that I can hand quilt it. We'll talk more about the quilting in a separate video. Today, I want to tell you more about the quilt top. Some of it was machine pieced, some hand pieced, and it was also my first experience really diving into applique as a technique. So it was a great learning opportunity. So thanks for joining me, and I'm excited to get into it. So the first thing I want to show you are these awesome templates that came with the Block of the Month program. So these templates, you can see I've got them in a bag here, finished templates. I'm saving these for sure because, I might want to make another one. So what I did was keep the monthly instructions in a bag, separate bags, one for each month with the templates. That way I can go back and make another one at any time. So I'm just going to pull out one of these. I just want to show you the quality of the templates that we're getting. You can see that the instructions are nice and clear, and you may recognize this block from the photos of the quilt. Obviously there's a lot of curves here, and then some unusual shaped pieces like this that really can be more easily done with the template. So this particular Block of the Month program includes these templates, and these are nice acrylic templates covering the shapes that you need with the 1/4 inch seam allowance clearly marked, and holes here where you can put a pencil through if you need to mark corners. And these are really thick. They're very sturdy, they're easy to see through, but they're plenty thick, so they're not going anywhere, and very easy to use. I've used a variety of templates for different projects, and these are by far some of the best templates I've had to use. So they included templates of this quality for all the months where templates were appropriate. So I just want to show you how nice these are, and I was really pleased with that part of the process. Another thing I'd like to show you here is just the quality of the instructions. If you look at the instructions, you can see how the pieces are labeled with numbers, and those numbers correspond to the numbers that are on these templates. So you can see T26 and T26. And so it's really clear, very well done, very easy to understand. Cutting instructions up front, followed by assembly. And there was no confusion. Generally speaking, I was very happy with how the instructions were laid out, so no complaints there. Okay, next let's talk about prints. This is the fun part. So, as you may have noticed in the instructions, the instructions did not tell you what prints to use where. They leave it up to you entirely, which I think is great, because that way everyone who makes this quilt, even if they're following the same pattern and same design, they wind up with their own version of it. So as you'll see a little later in the video, I spent quite a bit of time making choices about which fabrics to put where. But I have to say the fabrics that they provided, never mind the wrinkles here, were just fantastic. These are some of my scraps that were left over after making this quilt, and I have not released these scraps into the rest of my scrap stash yet, because I don't do that personally. I choose not to do that until the quilt is fully done, just in case for some reason I need to go back and use more of something. But I have to say I was extremely impressed with the variety of prints that were provided, and the Block of the Month program included a very wide assortment of prints that came every month. So, and they also provided many more prints than you actually needed to make the quilt. So that was great. It allowed me to do some fussy cutting and allowed me to really be careful in selecting which prints I wanted where in the design without regard for worrying about running out of anything. So the biggest compliment I have to give the planners on this one was providing more than enough prints and good prints for every month. So you could just leave some prints aside if you didn't like them, use extra if you wanted, and inevitably, as the months went along, you wind up having a lot more prints to choose from for the future months. So you will notice, if you look carefully in the quilt, I do repeat usage of prints in some places. And that's because I had the opportunity to, because as the months go along, as you get into later months, you've got a great stash built up of all these different prints to choose from, because there's no way you're using up all the prints that you receive every month. So I thought that was very well done. Great assortment, great prints, and great quality, and lots of it. So no complaints at all. Now I'm going to talk about some of the blocks that went into this quilt. First, I'm going to start by talking about the applique blocks, even though they didn't all come at the very beginning of the process. After we're done looking at the blocks, next I'll show you the process I used to make the backing to get this quilt top ready to go on the long arm for thread basting. The very first block of the month, of course, was an applique block, which was new to me at the time. So this had some convex and concave curves and was a little challenging. And I spent a good bit of time auditioning fabrics to make sure I got the right prints in the right places. The next block we're looking at was also an applique block. I spent a good bit of time trying to look at different prints and balance the colors across this block. This pineapple applique block was actually a little easier than it looks. Doing that center part looks hard, but it turned out not to be too bad. The harder part was actually choosing which fabrics I wanted to use for the pineapples and then which ones to use for the stems. And here are the first three blocks side by side. The next applique block included vines and flowers. This was a fun one. I tried using a hoop. I didn't really enjoy it, and I wound up going back to just doing it without the hoop. I'm pretty pleased with the final results on this one. I think it looks nice. The fifth and final applique block in this quilt is this flower pot. This one was cool because I did fussy cutting to get different prints in different places amongst the flower petals. So I really enjoyed taking the time to choose the prints, make sure I got exactly what I wanted in the right location. So you'll see leaves within the leaf shapes, faces within the petals, and some other goodies. Here's the first pieced block that we're going to look at. I made 3 of these all together, and the fun part here was trying to choose the prints that gave us the overall look that we were going for. Getting the right combinations was a little challenging, but I think I got there. There were also 3 of these blocks to make. This was challenging too because I had to think about the prints that I was using and the fact that these blocks alternate with the last block that we saw, making sure that everything was going to look nice next to each other. These blocks were fun. There were 7 altogether. Nothing too fancy here, just lots of sharp points to keep track of, but I think they look good. These are some of the photos I took while I was auditioning different combinations of fabrics. I would use photos to walk away and think about it and then look back later and see if I liked the combinations I had made. After I'd finished all the blocks you've seen so far, I was eager to put them side by side and take a look at how it was coming together. There's so many prints and so many colors happening here, but I think it looks really cool. I was pretty happy with how things were coming together. This next block was fun to make. It's pretty simple, but it's got a good look to it. There were lots of fussy cutting opportunities, some of which you may have seen in the beginning of the video. There were 7 of these all together, and I'm pretty happy with how they turned out. This was also the point at which I started experimenting with hand piecing, which I really enjoyed, and I did quite a bit of it throughout the rest of the quilt. Here you can see how those 7 blocks look next to the rest of the blocks. Now this block was a challenging one, both in terms of fabric selection, because there's so many prints in every block, and also construction. The templates for these curved pieces were fairly complicated. The assembly wasn't easy. There are 5 of these overall. In the end, I think the key is to have a really strong variety of prints, and then the whole thing just kind of blends together and has that, kind of crazy overall look. Looking at the back of one of these, you can see I hand-stitched these as well. I found it to be a nice way to do the curves. If you spend too much time thinking about print combinations, you'll drive yourself crazy, and it probably doesn't matter in the end. So the next thing I'm going to show is the inner border blocks, where there were a lot of these diamonds within a square. I lost count of how many we made, but there's a strip of these that runs the length of the quilt. You can see here in this photo. It makes a cool look overall. Again, going for somewhat random combinations is the key. Similar to the inner border, there's an outer border on two edges that has these diamonds, and then the outer border on the other two edges is circles appliqued onto a square. I actually didn't take any photos in progress of the circles on the square, but you can see them in this photo of the whole quilt altogether. Additionally, you can see some inner border blocks that are 9 patches, triangles, and then something similar to the diamonds, but more like hourglass shapes. I didn't talk about the details of any of those inner border blocks in this video, but you can get the idea just by looking at the finished quilt top. I do want to point out that these inner border pieces I hand stitched as well. You can see the backing here, and also you can see by looking at the backing of the borders that I hand stitched the outer borders on. All right, now I'm going to show you the process I took to make the backing. As always, I start by double checking my measurements of the quilt top. Here's a close-up shot of the specific print that I've chosen for the backing. I really like this one. I think it'll look good. Based on the dimensions of the top, I need 3 pieces that are 96 inches in length. So I'm going to fold the backing fabric over itself twice at 96 inches based on a measurement using a tape measure. And then I'll cut the ends, and that'll give me 3 pieces that are the right length. Before I can sew these 3 pieces together, I need to trim the selvages off. So I'm carefully folding and positioning the fabric so that I make a single cut and take the selvage off and have a consistent width for this piece of fabric. Now I'm just going to repeat the same process for the other 2 pieces. Next, I'm going to go to the featherweight and I'm going to stitch these 3 backing pieces together to make one large panel. Now that I have all 3 pieces together, the last step in preparing this backing is just to press these seams. I hope you enjoyed this look at the Jen Kingwell Golden Days quilt. It sure was a lot of fun to make, so I hope you enjoyed seeing it. Thanks for joining me, and I'll see you on the next one.